Hi, this is Brooke Devard from Naked Beauty. Are you tired of feeling housebound? I sure am. Break free with the new Unbound cordless auto curler from Conair. It's a high-performance auto curler that's rechargeable and gives you up to 60 minutes of cord-free runtime. Just think of all of the incredible hair looks you can create in 60 minutes unbound away from your wall. Don't get tied down by cords. Love your look, live unbound. Check it out at conair.com and search Unbound.
Welcome to
Separate Bathrooms and other handy marriage tips.
Hey there, I'm Cam Daddo.
I'm Ali Daddo.
You can hit us up on Instagram. I'm at Cameron Daddo. Al's at
Ali Daddo.
Thank you.
Very easy.
I'll never quite. I actually, in my phone, you know, I have you as A. So all I need to do is press A and then you come up straight away.
Yeah. Wouldn't I come up just as Ali Daddo if you just
Yeah,
pressed
but
A?
if I press two A's, then it's no one else comes up. It's just yours comes up by itself.
Gotcha.
So sometimes I think your Instagram is A.
Gotcha.
Aye. All right, today we're talking about all things pregnancy, birth, miscarriages, and how that affects a relationship. And we've had a fair bit of experience in this field, and it's a fairly common topic for couples either trying to get pregnant or who have felt their relationship change through raising children. Before we get into that, though, honey, we are 5 podcasts in. This is our 6th.
Yeah.
How are you doing with this process?
With the podcast process.
Yeah. and exposing yourself.
Yeah.
Because I remember we got an email very early on from a dude that said, can a married couple actually be honest with each other in this forum?
Right.
Do you think that's real, you know?
Yeah.
Or realistic, I should say. So how are you doing with it?
Well, I mean, as far as it comes to you and I, fabulous. As far as it comes to being extremely vulnerable and exposed to anyone who wants to listen to a podcast, I realize that is way harder than I understood it to be.
How so?
You know, when the first one went live, part of me really wanted to just go into turtle mode and just be like, all right, I'm packing up. I'm moving to Noumea. I'm done. I'm changing my name. All of a sudden, I felt really like I was standing naked in the middle of Martin Place. And I didn't expect to feel like that. I was surprised by how exposed it was. A lot of it was because I didn't realize, because I've been out of the public eye for so long, and you're used to this more than I am, a lot of magazines, online magazines, took our words out of context and made stories. And all of a sudden they're popping up all these stories, and they've used our words correctly in the sense of in quotes.
Yeah, they've transcribed it.
They've transcribed it, but they've made their own stories from our podcasts. And then the stories just all of a sudden seemed a bit sordid and a bit untrue and a bit like...
It's kind of serving their agenda a bit.
Yeah, here they go again. They're talking about this. And I was like, oh no, this is not what we did this for. And I felt really concerned. And I have a really beautiful Instagram friend called Dr. Rebecca Ray, who I just adore. Everything she writes on her Instagram, all of her quotes, I'm constantly saving. And I messaged her, and she'd said how much she loved the first podcast, and I said, I just feel so vulnerable and exposed, and I don't know if I can continue on. And she said, Brene Brown, who I also love, motivational speaker, and she's actually an expert on shame and vulnerability and bravery. Yep. She said, when you expose yourself emotionally,
I was going to say,
let's just clear that right out.
So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
When you expose yourself emotionally and you're vulnerable, you get what's called a shame hangover the next day, or you can.
Right.
And that made a lot of sense to me. And there's been a little bit of trolling, which is, I personally find that hard. I know I'm not meant to. I'm meant to be thick-skinned and go, hey, you put yourself out there so you get what you get. I understand that. It still doesn't feel good. So that's how I'm feeling.
Okay. Yeah, I know that I've felt like that too. I know that even with, like you say, you've been in it a long time, and people have said that to me. Well, we kind of expect you to be good at this, Cam, but Alison's fantastic, and we don't really expect that because she is not as experienced as you are in this field. Yet, I know that I have had that feeling of when I've put myself out there, especially on film, and you show, because, in acting a role, you go there as deeply as you possibly can, and you bring your life to that part. You fill that character with your life, and I know that's a very vulnerable feeling, and especially when you get criticised by it on stage, in stage performances and things like that. And if someone turns around and criticises that, it can be pretty hard, and to have a thick skin. So here we are exposing our marriage, really, what makes our marriage. And I've got to keep coming back to the idea of why we initially did it. And for me, it's about telling our story. Everybody has a story. As many people are on this planet are as many different stories. And I think that's one of the reasons why we as a race don't seem to be learning very much, because we're not sharing our stories. We're not learning from each other. And the aged are dying with their stories.
Yeah.
And we're not learning. And it's important that we tell our stories, because I know that, say when I heard my father's story, I'll talk about this another time, but we videotaped my dad telling his life story. And I learnt things about that. And I knew that if I'd known some of those things that he talked about, it's so beautiful, I might have changed the course of the way I behaved a bit, So this is the reason why we're doing this podcast, is to share our story. It's not to be, we're not experts. We're not therapists. We're not, we're just a couple that have
still attempting to work things out, even as of today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, every day we come up against something where we've got to figure out how to best do it. You know, so if we share our story with you, wherever you are listening to this podcast, we hope that it's our intention that you, through our story, that you might tell your story to someone else, and share your story.
Yeah.
Because it's important that we do share what we're going through, because of, like I've said before, a problem shared's a problem halved. That's been my experience.
Yeah.
And we can learn from each other. So that's how I feel. And I do feel that vulnerability that you're talking about. We've tackled some pretty interesting subjects so far. We're going to continue. And so that feels good to get it off my chest, actually. Especially that when I heard you talking about that shocked me about the transcribing, that people can transcribe our words and put them in any context that they want to. So if you want to get the true story, if you've got someone you're listening to, I'm talking to you at home or in the car or walking, whatever you're doing, that if you're talking about this podcast and someone says, oh yeah, I read that story about them and blah, 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 it's like, direct them back to this podcast, because at least you're getting our words, but you're also getting the context of our words and the tone of which it's being said.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So, over to you.
And cue me.
Yes. So like I said, we're talking about pregnancy today.
Yeah.
And things that go with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and I think it's perfect. It's a good tie-in in the sense of vulnerability, because, being vulnerable, parenting is a very vulnerable thing. You're constantly being challenged in ways to be brave, to be open, to be loving, and there's nothing quite like a child to bring up all sorts of things from your own childhood, your fears, your worries, your concerns. I mean, it really can change the trajectory of your life.
Yeah.
And, we were pregnant young. Our first pregnancy, I was 24.
Yeah. So we've only been married 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, almost 3, but yeah, about, yeah. No, that's right, 2 years. And I, of course, was over the moon, beyond excited, absolutely thought it was the bee's knees, dream come true. And I think I can't speak for most women, of course, though, you know, you are having physical symptoms that your body immediately goes into change. So it's an emotional, it's a spiritual, and it's a physical experience when you know you are pregnant. So it's just all encompassing. And what comes forth as well, I think for most women, it certainly did for me, is as soon as you're pregnant, all of those future dreams become reality. You imagine holding the baby. You imagine taking that baby's hand as you walk them to school. You imagine them dating. You imagine walking them down the aisle, or whatever it is. Their whole life becomes laid out before you, even when you're only 6 weeks pregnant. It's such a reality in who this child already becomes to you. So, you know, when you lose that baby, even at an early stage, it's still so incredibly impactful. And I think sometimes people make the mistake of only going, oh, well, she was only 8 weeks pregnant, or she was only 12 weeks pregnant, or, you know, it doesn't, I actually don't think it matters. I think as soon as that woman knows she has life inside of her and that baby is wanted, then I know I did. I attached everything to that tiny tiny wee little seed of a baby or a fetus, that was where everything was going to be magically delicious. So we lost that baby at 12 weeks.
See, this is where it gets tricky for me, because I remember parts of that time. And I remember outwardly going along with it, with the pregnancy, outwardly excited. And I also remember inwardly I wasn't ready. And this is the tricky thing for me at the moment, given that this is what we're talking about today, is 2020 hindsight on, after many hours of discussion, you know, years of discussion about this. So I'm attempting to make a connection to my pre-pregnancy brain.
Your pre-pregnancy brain.
My pre-pregnancy dad brain. And making a connection to my post-pregnancy, my teenage father dad brain is difficult enough. So, look, I know that at the time, I know I wanted to have kids, yet here we were in a new country. We were living in the US. We had no family to fall back on. Everybody was here in Australia. We had no friends with kids that we could sort of just have a shared experience with. I mean, our friends were all single and loved having lingerie parties by the pool in Hollywood, which we were never invited to because we were the married couple.
What lingerie party in Hollywood? I missed that invite.
Oh, they had.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Did you go to one?
No, honey, we weren't invited.
Oh, right.
Because we were married.
Lingerie parties.
I'm not going to drop names here, but there were names.
Oh, well.
I mean, these are not famous names, by the way. They were These were just. Well, actually, no, they became famous.
Oh. So, did they wear lingerie? I'm sorry.
No, everyone was in lingerie.
Everyone's in lingerie.
Yeah, they were all in lingerie, doing their thing by the pool, you know, making hot dogs and, you know,
wow,
spreading ketchup
okay, this
over
is
places
new information.
Like
anyway, carry on.
That? Okay,
no, not
good
at
on.
all.
So there was that going on, but also, you know, I was concentrating on my career as well, and in that there was, I know there was some selfishness in there about just not being ready to have a baby. So when you lost the baby, I remember feeling very sad, and also didn't have much understanding of it. I probably was that guy going, "Oh, you're only 12 weeks," but you were showing. I remember you were showing at that point. You had a little bump.
Yeah,
because you're pretty slim, Jim.
Maybe a little, yeah.
But I remember not having the compassion that I developed later in life through experience about it. It was more about a bit more relief that I felt. And I felt ashamed for having that feeling, knowing how deeply hurt you were and how upset you were sometimes inconsolable, and I didn't know. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I really didn't know how to take care of you at that point.
And I do remember that experience. Like I do remember, because I think I just fell in a hole. And I don't think anyone really, I just had to work my way through it really and just feel what I was going to feel. And it took a while to come out of that hole in a way. I think I tried to pretend like at some point I wasn't sad, but every baby that I saw, every pregnant woman that I saw, your sister was pregnant at the same time. And, you know, all of that was just agonizing each time I thought about that. But, you know, I guess I knew I had time on my side. I was only 24. At least I knew I could get pregnant. Those were the things that I kept on thinking about. But, you know, it's as I said, I certainly pinned an enormous amount on that baby. And I don't think we were ready. Actually, you know, and that's one of those things, great things in hindsight. We weren't really ready for a baby. We were still very young. We were still getting to know each other. And as we've talked about before, our marriage blew apart.
Not long after that.
Not long after at all. So,
like, it was a few months, wasn't it?
Yeah. So imagine if that had been part of the mix, that would have been disaster for all of us, including a brand new baby, trying to work our way around that as well. At least it was just the
a lot
two
of people
us.
go through that.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Absolutely.
Does your little one love Paw Patrol? What about dinosaurs? Well, perfect, because the new season of Paw Patrol is here. And guess what? It's a dino rescue. I can't wait for my kid to watch each episode 10 times a night. On the plus side, all your holiday and birthday gift shopping is pretty much done because, of course, there are a whole new batch of dino rescue toys, too. And for a limited time at Target, get 15% off the new Paw Patrol Dino Rescue toys with code PAW15. Paw Patrol Dino Rescue. Check it out. It's gonna be pawsome.
So then we'll cut to 2 years later. We were together and we were renewing our vows, and you were pregnant.
Yes. With little Lotus.
Yeah.
Hence the name, the flower that grows from mud.
So that's what we used to say. We kind of still do.
Yeah.
That she grew from our mud of our relationship.
Yeah.
And this beautiful little flower popped up. That's why she got called Lotus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now that was an interesting time through that pregnancy, because you obviously, you know, you carried Lotus full term. You went 2 weeks over.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling during that period quite useless. You were obviously having a great relationship because you were one. And I remember writing one but not one, two but not two on a T-shirt or something. And that's the relationship that you were having with Lotus. And for me, and I'm sure for many other dads, it's a tricky time, because we do feel like, well, I'll keep it with myself. I felt that I wasn't part of that experience. And then I was given some different ways, different tools in order to be part of the experience. And one was the baby massage.
Yeah.
And that was to have you, I'd sit with my back against the wall or a couch or something on the floor. You would come and sit between my legs, pull your T-shirt up, and I'd get olive oil and just put it on my two forefingers on each hand, and then circle your belly with the olive oil and do this rubbing. And it was sort of like rubbing the six-pack, starting at the bottom and working my way up.
Not that there was any six-pack left.
It was a bit of a massive one-pack.
It was just a bubble.
Yeah. But it was an amazing thing, because during that time, all I needed to do, this happened really quickly. After a few weeks, Lotus was already moving, But after a few weeks, I would put my hands there, and she would kick my hands. She could feel my hands.
You used to sing to her though too.
I did, yeah. And then she would really move around. She'd be like, "Stop."
I think she was twerking actually in my belly. I think that's or what's that thing? Flossing.
No, well, maybe she's doing more of like a country two-step. She would do two-step boogie.
Could be. she was certainly kicked a lot.
Yeah, she sure did. But that was one way, and one way for me to feel that I was part of this. Because I was helping you. You know, you don't have any stretch marks on your belly, and I'm sure that's because that olive oil got placed on your belly almost daily throughout your 3 pregnancies, and it was great. It was a great experience for me to be able to do that.
One thing we did a lot of too was we talked a lot about what our fears were about the birth, about post-birth, about the fears about raising children. You know, what if we mess them up? What if we do this? What if this happens? And we talked a lot about the what ifs. And that was really important because that sort of, in talking about the what ifs, and going through them all and coming to a conclusion at the end, we were much clearer about our intention of who we wanted to be as parents, our intention about the birth, though as a birth assistant myself, you have an intention and then you let that intention go because heaven only knows how that birth is going to go.
We have 3 very different ones, didn't we?
Very different births, 3 of them. So, you know, you set your intention and then you just see what happens. But, you know, having the intention, I think, is really important as a couple. You know, we've talked a lot about being on the same page, and it is such a massive event, bringing a child into the world. And, you know, we talked about some parenting styles. We talked about, you know, and even now we still talk about parenting styles because we're both in some ways different in the way we parent our kids. You know, and that's sometimes been a bone of contention.
Pretty more often than not.
One of us could be a little softer. One of us could be a little harder. Your guess is as good as mine whose that is. But yeah, so, you know, all of those things really. And we did it with each birth. Actually, we didn't just stop with the first one. The second one, River.
Which is normally the way to go, isn't it? Where
you
take all the pictures of the first kid and the third one gets none.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Treat it differently.
So, yeah, talking about all of that was really, really important.
I mentioned before you had your first miscarriage that I didn't know what to do. You know, I really didn't know what to do. But we got another chance at dealing with miscarriage. Lotus was 8, River was about 4, and you got pregnant again. And you took that pregnancy, we went into, was it 17 weeks?
Yeah.
And then you lost that baby at 17 weeks. That was truly one of the hardest times in our marriage, I think. Because again, I mean, to lose a baby at 17 weeks was devastating. Because, you know, when we were looking at those scans, you know, the heartbeat thing was happening with the doctor's appointments, and it was all like, oh yeah, we've done this twice before and this is going to happen again. We're just going to have this little baby. And then it didn't happen. And for me, that was a pivotal moment where insofar as I didn't know how to care for you, the first miscarriage, I learned about care in that second one, in how to be there for you. And I felt much more connected to myself probably. But I was able to be there for you. And I remember being in that doctor's office and you were attached to some contraption. It was like a medieval sucking machine. And that contraption was actually pulling the fetus from you. And it was painful. You couldn't have drugs. So you were feeling every bit of that. And I was there.
It's actually... They have to, my feet were in stirrups. They have to scrape the internal walls to get everything out, because if there's anything that's left, it can cause infection and can be damaging to the mother. It's called a D&C.
A D&C, that's right.
Yeah, but they couldn't get the IV line in to give me any drugs. That was why. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
That's why they asked
Oh, no,
you to.
I'm glad you cleared it up.
They had to ask you to hold me down.
I had to hold you down. And so in holding you down, it was, it was like it was being done on me too.
Yeah.
And I remember just chanting in your ear, just right up against your ear, just to keep you focused, and I think keep me focused as well. But it was in that moment that I was like, we really are in this together, and it really brought me into the present time of like, what can I do to care for this person who I love? And it was what I learned in that time was really just, that you were the most important thing, because like you said, with that potentiality of an infection, we needed to keep you safe, and healthy. So that was to me when I really learned how to be there for you without feeling like I was being underdone or not cared for. And I often come back to that moment where I was, cooking and cleaning, and you were lying in bed, and tears were flowing, and how to not tell you how to feel or anything, but just to be with you. And then I was having feelings as well about it, and that feeling of devastation.
And I think that's a really important point, because when you're together as a couple, when one of you is, obviously it was our baby, so it was we had our grief in that. Though you are affected deeply when your partner is going through a very grieving time, and it's often tricky, even if it's a good friend or if it's a sister or a brother or someone who's grieving. I think sometimes it's challenging for us to know exactly how to offer support, offer help. Some people just shy away from it and pull back because they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Some people feel that they want to share their own experience. Some people just want to be there. And it depends often on the person who's grieving, what feels good to them too. I know at first I wanted to shut myself away from everyone and just go into everything myself, and I think just want you. But we also had 2 young children that needed to be cared for, and it was very impactful for them. And then just having people around that, would make soup. I remember my friends making some soup, making some porridge one day, coming and rubbing my feet. Just little things like that just were really beautiful. And you were a constant as well. One thing that you did that I remember it was so beautiful. And I know people have done this for anyone who's had a loss in their family, be it a baby or an adult. You had a star named out after the baby, and we didn't have a name for the baby yet. We were just calling it little baby Buddha. We didn't know what we were going to call the baby, but you named a star after the little one. And that was really beautiful, because it was just a really lovely way to acknowledge that there was this other little one that didn't make it all the way through. But that was a really beautiful experience to have that. I remember one of my friends at school lost her child at 6 months, and 6 months pregnant. And there's beautiful necklaces that you can buy, little mothering necklaces, and it does a little stone and a little heart. And I remember I bought that for her and just gifted that to her, and she was really moved by that she could just wear that in memory of her little one. So there's things that you can do. I think doing something is better than not doing something, always.
Yeah. They'll call me if they need me.
Yeah.
Waiting for them to say, this is what I need, because often we don't know what we need.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
You don't know what you need, and then someone turns up with something, or does something, in some gesture, and you go, oh my, that just felt so kind.
Just something little, just to be acknowledged that someone knows you've thought about them.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful.
So what we've learned in our marriage getting through grieving processes, whether, it be a miscarriage or, loss of a job or financial worries, what 3 things would you say helped you?
I would say first and foremost, it's really feeling listened to. It's incredibly important that when I'm saying how sad I am, that I have you listening to me. That's a huge thing to help heal. And then in complete opposition to that is sometimes just sitting in silence and just being there and just holding hands while that person's crying, or just holding hands looking at the TV, or, watching the surf, or, just having the presence of you there. And then again, something like having you bringing home a funny movie or something to laugh at that would just bring levity to it. If it's that time, if that time and space where you go, I can bring a bit of levity in here now. And because laughter, as we know, is a great medicine for grief, if you can find where that fits appropriately.
Yeah. You take a sort of an ironic look at it too, see it from a different perspective. That often works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I would say what I learnt during that second miscarriage was that there is no time limit to grieving. And I come from a background of okay, that's enough, get up, off you go, you dust yourself off, move on. And that sometimes that works too. With a grieving issue, there is no time limit really. And the person who is grieving should be allowed to be with their feelings whenever they come up, because if anyone's gone through any difficulty like that, that it does come up at odd times. And to be able to feel with a person that respects that, goes, oh yeah, this is that moment. Okay, I'll do what I need to do. I was also going to say that in that process of grieving, it's often good to go and seek someone out, a professional, if you don't know what to do, which I didn't know what to do with you. So we did have a grief counsellor, a therapist, was there for us to help get us both through that time.
Yeah.
And one that really worked well was a change of environment. Remember, after that second miscarriage, I took you up to Monterey Peninsula up in Northern California, and we went and stayed at a winery for a couple of days. And it was about 3 months afterwards. And you got pregnant again.
Shh. I'm glad you didn't say, and I took you to a lingerie party. That's where I thought you were going for a hot second. I was like, no, we didn't go to a lingerie party. Yeah, we went to a winery. And
we found the lingerie there, and the 5 o'clock wine tasting was quite
I think
good.
you were in lingerie, which was why I got pregnant. Is that how
Indeed,
it went?
That's how it all started.
Little Miss Bodie came along.
All right. I think that's enough said for now. Until
Indeed.
next time, enjoy your separate bathrooms if you have one.
Thanks so much for listening. Take care.
Does your little one love Paw Patrol? What about dinosaurs? Well, perfect, because the new season of Paw Patrol is here. And guess what? It's a dino rescue. I can't wait for my kid to watch each episode 10 times a night. On the plus side, all your holiday and birthday gift shopping is pretty much done because, of course, there are a whole new batch of dino rescue toys, too. And for a limited time at Target, get 15% off the new Paw Patrol Dino Rescue toys with code PAW15. Paw Patrol Dino Rescue. Check it out. It's gonna be pawsome.